Yo, what is up, guys? It's Pedro here. Today we got another Washington football team weekly stream, and I got my guy Corey from On the Warpath on the channel. Make sure you guys go ahead and check out his channel. Link is in the description. Also, about to put it in the chat as well. Great guy, great YouTuber. He's been streaming most of the playoff games, and he does content every week. So make sure you guys go ahead and check him out. How you doing, Corey?
I'm doing good, Pedro. It's good to be back with you, bro. Thanks for having me on here. And man, it seems like the season never stops for us, right? It just keeps
Yeah,
on going and going.
yeah. Let's see. What's up, One Life Music? What's up, Darius? Appreciate you guys for coming through. So today's gonna be another, kind of off-season talk video similar to what I did last week. So we're gonna be talking about free agency, the draft, trades for, a potential quarterback of the future. And then we'll also get into random stuff as well, like coaching stuff and some coaches we want to get gone. What's up, King Sean? Appreciate you coming through. So, I mean, now's the time, and what's up, Riker, of like just a ton of rumors, right? Like it's the end of the season, coaches are getting fired slash hired. The season just ended, and the rumors are starting to flow, right? We're hearing like potentially Jimmy G to Washington. Washington wants to make a huge they're going to make a huge push for one of these top quarterbacks and other stuff as well. So we're going to be talking about that, Malik Willis, and other stuff. One thing I wanted to start off with real quick is, because it is coaching, firing and hiring time right now. Any coaches that you think Washington should move on from, and any coaches you think they will move on from him, could be, anyone, could be assistant coach, could be assistant to the assistant.
Steve Russ, I think, is worn his time out here with the linebackers and the linebacker play. I think that they have been the most underwhelming position on defense for the last 2 years, and it just seems like he's not getting to those guys. And double down on it. It looks bad on Ron and Jack Del Rio because they were linebackers. Jack played at a high level for numerous years in the league back in the late 80s, early 90s. And then Ron, he learned from some of the best, and like Mike Singletary, Wilbur Marshall, those guys from the 85 Bears. So, Pedro, when I look at it, I think Steve Russ has an X on his back, and he needs to be shown the door because it's unacceptable how the linebackers have played, how the linebackers have developed, and I don't, I don't know that he would be my guy to get rid of.
Yeah, I agree. I would say Steve Russ is a good one. I mean, Jamin Davis, he just hasn't really developed really. I mean, this is rookie year, so obviously he's still got time, but really weren't able to develop him at the middle linebacker position. Appreciate that, Sean. I would say another one, Sam Mills. I think he needs to go just because the production for the defensive line hasn't matched what we thought it would be, and also there seems to be like a disconnect there between some of those guys. So like they don't really like Mills. So I think it would be a good thing to move on from Sam Mills. Maybe I don't know what the Travell Wharton is that the assistant or is
That's
that
he's Matsko's
okay?
assistant.
Yeah, but they're
Scania, who's going to be in the Shrine Bowl, is his assistant.
yeah.
And I think with Sam Mills, you think about it too, Pedro. This guy has only known Carolina throughout his whole career. His dad played there. He was an assistant. I mean, he was there with John Fox early on, and he was there with Ron Rivera. So if you look at that guy, is a Carolina guy coming up here, and you got to look at it this way too. Jonathan Allen's had two of his best seasons with Sam Mills there, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here. He had this season where he just got paid and he played out of his mind. He got a vote to be on the All-Pro team, and you look at Chase Young and Montez Sweat. Montez Sweat sacks numbers have pretty much maintained the same. And that could be working with Scania too, because Scania came out as he was a pass rusher and a decent one at that. when he was in the NFL. So I don't know where the disconnect is. I don't know if you can lay it all on Sam Mills III's feet in that situation, because it is two guys in that room working with these defensive linemen. And, I kind of argue the same thing for like if John Matsko and company, right? John Matsko is doing a great job. He gets the credit, but Travell Wharton's in that room as well working with these guys. So how much of it is Matsko? How much of it is Travell Wharton on the good side of it? And then, like I said, on the bad side, is it really, who is it? That's just one of my devil advocates that I kind of look at when I'm kind of looking at what these players are doing. And, if it is Sam Mills III, he's got to get gone. Like I have no time. We have no time to see this defensive line play as terrible as it did. First of all, you don't need your bookends standing up. Put their hands in the dirt. And Pedro, even to this, right, bro? Smith Williams and Tuhill played pretty well when they were healthy out there. People kind of overlooked that. They overlooked the fact that these guys were playing pretty good, and we didn't have either one of Sweat and Young went on a 4-game winning streak with those cats too. Don't forget that now. Like that,
No,
I feel like a lot of people don't realize what the defensive line did after the fact. But definitely we need those guys on there. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, let me say I have some people in the chat. What's up, Merrill? What's up, Casper Hill? What's up, Jay? What's up, Fight for Old DC? OC Levi? And what's up, Retro? I would say I agree with that. I just think the reason I would get rid of him is because there is a disconnect between like the top guys, in my opinion, and Sam Mills, especially Chase Young, Sweat, and then you can throw in Ioannidis and maybe someone else in there. And I just think that like he doesn't necessarily command the respect that he should from those guys. Like, Casey Toole, James Smith Williams, they are doing what they have to listen to the coaches, because if they don't, they can right away just cut them. They can just cut them right away. There is no reason to keep. I mean, you obviously want them, but they're expendable. You can move on from them if you want. You can't do that with Chase Young, with Montez Sweat, and I think someone like Chase Young would not be doing this with Jim Tom Sula or someone like that. So I think I would bring in someone else. That's at least my opinion. What's up, OKG2000? No, I'm not outside. Just got the green screen. But I think he's someone I would definitely try to move on from. There's just too much going around with that D-line, and I think I would do that. There's not really that much risk involved moving on from someone like him, bringing a guy outside of Carolina. Maybe let Jack Del Rio choose the D-line coach, because, he is the defensive coordinator. I mean, like, if you think about it, most of these guys are Ron Rivera guys from Carolina.
Exactly.
So Del Rio didn't really get to choose. Maybe Chris Harris was someone but he never worked. He never worked with him. Maybe he was close with him. But
Brett Vesselmeyer.
What?
Brett Vesselmeyer is the only person that's ever worked with Jack Del Rio outside of Washington. He was there in Oakland when he was with the Raiders, right? Chris Harris played for Ron Rivera.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's a connection there, and I think that is a huge disconnect that people are discounting, is the fact that Jack Del Rio is in a room full of Ron guys, and I'm not saying that they don't get along or whatever, but the communication, you're having to build up a lot of trust with your head coach's former cronies in Carolina. And I think you hit that. I say this all the time. So you and I are on. I agree 110% with you on that, because I've been saying that for almost the beginning of the season. That I'm like, hey, have we stopped and thought about this? Because this is like any other job, and if you don't have people around you that you don't trust, but it is year 2 now, so that's another thing. You could get away with that in year 1. You can't get away with that in year 2 as much.
Yeah, and it's like for me with Scott Turner, it's perfect. Like, you can have as many Carolina guys as you want, because he is a Carolina guy. So you can have John, and like, maybe honestly, just thinking about it now, like the assistant coaches on the offense have been pretty good. I mean, Pete Hainer, John Matsko,
Mhm.
those are probably our two best coaches on our team. Our assistant coaches, Randy Jordan was, worked here. He's been fine,
Mhm.
and then, Drew Terrell, I would say, I saw someone say that, we should move on from him. I wouldn't necessarily do that yet. He got 1 year. And if you really think about it, like we had Terry who, has been balling, but that's not a product of Drew Terrell. He's been balling since he got here. I mean, he didn't really do much this year, but it's his first year, and he really didn't have much to work with. Curtis Samuel being out, and I don't know. I would still give him a chance, but obviously, it's not the end of the world if they move on from him. And
Right.
then, I mean, yeah, it's just I really think they should let Jack Del Rio, if they make any moves on the defensive side of the ball, like if they move on from the D line coach, linebackers coach, let Jack Del Rio choose his guys. Like, because it's just I don't know. I'm kind of sick of Ron. Like, I love Ron Rivera. I think he's a good coach and he's a great leader, good culture builder. But I'm tired of just the Carolina stuff. Like, at some points I like it, but especially at the GM, like Marty Herney and Martin Mayhew. I know Martin Mayhew was not from Carolina, but he does have a connection with Ron. They were close. They shared the same agent. And I just, man, I didn't like that. I didn't like that move at the time. Bring those guys in. I wish they would have gone like the Giants. Joe Schoen, that is a connection with Rivera, but it's a guy that has tons of potential. I didn't really
Mhm.
like what they did at GM, and who knows? It could still definitely change. But that's just my opinion right there. I think Rivera needs to start to try to bring in some
Yeah.
other guys. Doesn't have to be, the whole team, or assistant coaches and, front office. Doesn't have to be, all non-Carolina guys, but start to bring in a few more than you have in the past, because I listened to Jay Gruden on the Ben Stanek podcast, and he said he liked to have, coaches from all over the place because it gives you a bunch of different perspectives. If you have all coaches from the same place that have been doing the same things for 10 years, you're not really going to get any new perspectives. You're not going to really learn new things as much as if you bring guys from all over the place. So that's just something with me that I think they should move on from a few of these guys.
With that saying, why didn't Jay Gruden didn't hire Wade Phillips for that same exact reason of what he's talking about.
True.
So
True.
I like I'm getting sick of Jay Gruden, and I like Ben. I love Pete Medhurst and Chris Russell. They are uh I talk to them off and on, and they have Jay Gruden on there, and that's just like I'm like, I shut up, just shut up. Part of the reason why we're in this mess now is partially because of you. So it's like bringing that ex-girlfriend back into your life, and you don't really need it there, and you're trying to get better, but here they come. They say, I've changed. Hey, I'm looking at you and then I'm starting to judge you for all the bad things that you did back in the day. I don't want to hear nothing about Jay Gruden and him, because we could have had Wade Phillips up in here instead of Joe Barry, but he decided to go with somebody who was probably smarter than him, and that who wasn't smarter than him, and we were in the same position that we were, and then we had Dusty Minuski and all these guys. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And Jay Gruden got beat out by Ben McAdoo today as for the offensive coordinator job in
that's a
Carolina.
lame duck job, man. That is a lame duck job. Nobody,
Yeah.
Jay
Matt
Gruden
Rule's
is
going to be
smart.
gone after this year.
Yep,
Rule's going to be
Jay
gone
Gruden's
after this
smart.
year. So, I mean, honestly, I wouldn't even be surprised if Jay Gruden just decline. I don't know. I mean, he went into a second interview, but
Mhm.
I don't know. Maybe he just didn't want the job because he was talking about that on the, Stanek podcast that if it's not a, great situation, I'm not going to necessarily go there. I'm sure there weren't, spots lined up for him. But
Mhm.
he's not that as an offensive coordinator, I would not mind him. Yeah, I don't think he's a bad offensive coordinator.
No.
He's just not as a head coach. You can't. He's not a head coach in this league. He even said that himself pretty much in the podcast. I know I'm not going to be a head coach, but offensive coordinator wise, he's fine. I think he should he's definitely better than some of these guys out there. So let's move on from coaching and let's move to kind of the quarterback. All this, because it's going to be all we talk about until we get one. there's rumors flowing around, we're trading for Jimmy G. We're going to do this. So, what do you think, or what's your preferred scenario? Give me like everything, plan A. If this doesn't work, we go to this and this up until the draft. What's your ideal scenario?
Ideal scenario for me is, and I've kind of backtracked because I've constantly my opinion is constantly changing on this, but I think the best move for Washington is to go out, call Seattle, and see what it would take to bring Russell Wilson here. I a lot of people compared him to Donovan McNabb. And we remember Donovan McNabb. I mean, you might not remember as much of Donovan McNabb as I do, but during that 2010 that 2009 season, they brought in Mike Vick because they saw the writing on the wall. 2 years prior, they had drafted Kevin Cobb, so they were finding his replacement. Pete Carroll never did this with Russell Wilson, and Russell Wilson had a great touchdown to interception ratio as well this year. I think he threw 6 picks only and threw 25 touchdown passes. His problem is he's never had an offensive line worth squat since he's been there, especially after this defense declined in the Legion of Boom and everything. So I say do what you can to try to bring Russell Wilson here, because I think him, Ron Rivera, and also I think to Scott Turner. I said this on my stream the other night. Scott Turner needs a quarterback that's smarter than him. This is why that offense worked with Alex Smith, and they were moving the ball because Alex Smith was smarter than Scott Turner. And I'm talking about from a situation. I'm not calling Scott Turner stupid, but I'm just saying from a situational standpoint, Alex Smith could go and say, "Hey, I can check out of this. I don't need to do this." You had an inexperienced quarterback this year. We saw it with Haskins last year that something just doesn't jibe there. So that would be my first thing. Go out and get Russell Wilson, bring him here, bring Sierra here. I mean, she can live in New York. He just come down here and have a house, have an apartment somewhere in Loudoun County. Kick the tires on Deshaun Watson if you want to. I think his price will be higher than Russell Wilson's just because of his age, and he did sit out a year. So I think he will demand a higher price. Dear God, just don't let him go to the Giants, right? That's probably the biggest thing. So it would be Russell Wilson A. I know he's going to be 34 in November, but with quarterbacks nowadays, it can work here. And I think Ron is unfortunate. I think he's going to make a panic move. And that's the thing. I think last year signing Ryan Fitzpatrick was a panic move. Because you had a lot of leeway, Pedro, and I'm going off the beaten path here, to draft a quarterback, a much better quarterback draft than what we have now. You had a chance you could have got a Justin Fields, a Mac Jones. I didn't want Mac Jones. I'll say that. A lot of people won't say, yeah, but you couldn't. You can't do that now. He cannot make an excuse about us not having a quarterback. You could justify 7-10 this year if you had a young quarterback. You can't justify it because you went out, spent $10 million on Ryan Fitzpatrick. Who told y'all that Ryan Fitzpatrick wasn't going to work here? He worked for about what?
You did
10 plays. That's it. So yeah, I mean that's my one plan. If you can't do it at the end of the day, go out and draft the quarterback. If you have to trade back into the first round, do it. But I think really you need to draft the middle linebacker and then draft your quarterback, because I think that's more pivotal right now than you never know, Carson Wentz might be available. He's terrible, not really good, but maybe he might find his way. I don't know. But yeah, right. Russell Wilson, that's it.
All right, let's see. I appreciate the $5 donation, Fat American. I have trust in Ron and Martin, Martin and Marty, I guess. Mm-hmm. And what they will do this offseason. After 20 years, I feel like we're moving in the right direction. I feel like we are, but this is a very important season because I do feel like we have the right people in place for the most part. Like there's, at least, in terms of culture, like I think Martin and Marty are, good culture guys, but they might not be the best, scout guys, They're probably like average at that, but they're good culture guys. They'll bring in guys that that we know won't get in trouble, and maybe that's like Jamin Davis because he's a military. I mean, that's more Ron, but he brought him in because he's a military guy. But yeah, I think we're moving in the right direction. But this is a very important year because Ron has to maintain Snyder's trust / approval. So if Ron, let's say we trade we I don't know, if we don't get above a winning record this year, that's when Snyder starts to lose his trust. The only way I feel like Snyder won't lose his trust is, let's say we do draft the rookie quarterback and he plays the whole rookie year, and let's say we win like 8 games, at the worst 7, but he maybe struggles early on, but the second half of the year, last 8-9 games, he's absolutely balling, and we finish off somewhat strong. That and the future is looking bright at that position. That's when it's fine if we're at somewhat of a losing record. We can't be at anything under 7 wins. But if we're at like 7 or 8 with a rookie quarterback and he looks good, then that's when, okay, he's not necessarily on the hot seat. But if we win like 8 games and we do draft the rookie, but he looks awful, well, Ron's still going to be on a little bit of the hot seat going into year 4. But I think at the end of the day, he likely will finish his contract here. I think he will, because Snyder has to think about this. Like, I don't know if you're going to be able to do much better than Ron. Like, just considering the track record of head coaches here, how long they last, the success they've had here, like, are you going to do much better than Ron? Are you going to do much better than like an average head coach? Because I think Ron's like an average to above average. He's not an elite head coach, but he's like, a decent head coach, and he's elite, I think, culture builder and leader of men. I don't know if you're going to find much better than that unless you get one of these sleepers. That's the only way you do it. And then if you do get one of these guys, young guys that really haven't done much, that's when it almost concerns me, because they're going to be more vulnerable to, Snyder telling them things to do. If it's a first-time head coach who's like 36 and he has Snyder in his ear telling him stuff to do, like Ron, if Snyder tells him stuff to do, he can tune it out. He knows how to work Snyder. But these young guys will not appreciate that donation. And then what I was kind of saying, you talked about middle linebacker. Here's the thing, Corey. Middle linebacker is our biggest hole besides quarterback. But I do not want to draft one. I want a guy in free agency, because just think about this. Do you really want Jamin Davis on the outside, Cole Holcomb on the outside, and then let's say Devin Lloyd or Nakobe Dean starting at middle linebacker for you, and them calling the signal, calling the defense? I just don't know. I don't like that inexperience. All those guys on, playing at the same time. Jamin Davis is still super young, played 1 year in college, started 1 year in college, didn't even play a ton this year. So I don't know if I like that, having, 3 young guys there, because Cole Holcomb's still somewhat young. I think they'll go after a veteran. Kime said that for a while. So, but, I would not mind drafting a linebacker. But I just don't want to do it super early, unless obviously we don't get one in free agency. I think there's a decent amount of solid linebackers in free agency that we can go for.
Yeah, I kind of to counter that, Pedro. Have you seen the free agent listing for middle linebacker so far this year? It's not good.
Okay, Devondre Campbell, all pro. Leighton Vander Esch can play middle linebacker and on the outside, but I like him. I like Leighton Vander Esch, the guy from the Falcons. I cannot pronounce his name, but he had
somebody had put that in.
He had 200 tackles this year. He's a guy that I would not mind. There's a couple others, and like you can usually find, Corey, like solid linebacker play at the middle linebacker position in free agency. I was like Devondre Campbell, all pro this year. They paid him $2 million last year. I was super, super surprised that Ron and company did not sign a single middle linebacker in free agency besides David Mayo last year. That was really, really concerning to me. That was a big mistake in my opinion. Let me get to some of these donations. Fat American, again, man, I appreciate the $5 donation. Well, how do you guys feel about Mayhew so far? Like the dude, actually, I think he'll do some good stuff for us. Our team will continue to get better. I think just I mean, Mayhew's all right. It's just we don't really know because it's only been one off season. We don't really. It's kind of unfair to judge him right now. I do like some of the moves they made. Charles Leno, great move. Keandre Carter, great move. John Bates, Sam Cosmi, Jarrett Patterson. A lot of those picks were great and moves. But there's some questionable moves. But their three biggest free agent signings at least underperformed a little bit. And a lot of that, though, is not really their fault. Like Fitzpatrick, I know you didn't like it from the jump, but like, did we really expect? He never really had any injury issues. And of course, the first quarter and a half, whatever the hip injury he had, he's out for the year. Like, of course that happens to us. Curtis Samuel, that's not really their fault. Again, he didn't have any injury issues at Carolina. Of course, misses pretty much the whole year. And then William Jackson, that's the one where, he did play well the second half of the season, but that's the one where you could point at, like, it really didn't really fit the scheme well because they're more of a zone team. And, William Jackson kind of struggles more in zone. He's more of a man guy, but he still played solid down the stretch. So the jury's still out on Mayhew. I don't think he's an elite evaluator, but I think he's solid for you. He can be okay for you. I just thought, I would have much rather gone for someone like Joe Schoen, Adam Peters, who was in that building with Martin Mayhew as a GM. What's his name? Ryan Cowden from Tennessee. But at the end of the day, I'm all right with Mayhew. Just like in my opinion, we could have done better.
Yeah, I can see that. Where but like you said, Pedro, a lot of I don't know if this draft was as bad as everybody is clamoring it to be.
I don't think so either.
I think that they, for their first draft on a short evaluation period, right? They did pretty well. And I think Mayhew may have picked up a couple of things. They took him from San Francisco, who's building a program out there, right? People talking about John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, and all these guys doing their thing out there. So you get somebody from some success. They had just come off the NFC Championship game a couple years ago, and then you look at I don't understand the Hurney thing. The Hurney thing is still that's just giving a buddy a job, and I'm not a big fan of that. And he's had some bad moments. He had some bad selections.
He was always a good first round guy, but after that kind of went downhill.
Yeah, it just yeah. So I
agree with you.
Yeah, I don't know. But like I said, with the linebackers and stuff, I get that, but he needs his Luke Kuechly. And that's why I look at a middle linebacker. And I think Dean could bring that just from a leadership standpoint, right? And he's close in age with Jamin Davis, and maybe Cole Holcomb is a little bit older than him, where I think he could mesh well, and I think he could be a good character kid for the organization. And he comes from a winning culture, and you want that. You need to add more winners into your organization and people who know how to do it. I think he would add something good there because I don't, to be honest with you, Pedro, none of these quarterbacks are top 10 material outside of Kenny Pickett. None of them are.
Yeah, I mean, you can make, and what's up, Ed? Appreciate you coming through. The only guy you can make an argument, like, he's not top. He has the lowest floor but the highest ceiling, and that's Malik Willis. We'll talk about that later, but you're taking a huge, huge gamble on him. One Life Music, appreciate the $2 donation always coming through here. Confident that Ron and Co. will get this roster. I agree. It's just like this fan base is so back and forth. It's funny. I'm not talking about you because you always support Ron, but I'm saying like you'll see the fans before the season, last season. Oh, I'm so happy about Ron's leading us to the future. He's going to be he's one of the better head coaches in the league. He's a great culture builder. And then we start out the season really bad, and then everyone jumps ship. Everyone's like, oh, fire on the
It's
eight,
year 2.
8 out of 11 seasons. People forget that he, took over a 3-13 squad the year before. This team was terrible when he got here. Had some talent, but at the state where where we got it from, just terrible. And I do believe he is getting this roster in the right direction. I hope, though, like Corey, that he doesn't make a panic move and trade like trade for Jimmy G, because
No.
I'm fine with Jimmy G. The only way I'm fine with Jimmy G is if we draft a quarterback this year in the first 2 rounds.
Okay.
If we trade for Jimmy G and that's it, that's a huge failure in my opinion, because yes, Jimmy G, I guess, can take you to the Super Bowl, but he took a great team, a team with an amazing D line, and just a top. They were probably the best defense in the league that year. They had a top 2 tight end. They had a great fullback. They had a good offensive line. They had Deebo Samuel. They had some other receivers as well. So, I mean, he has to have a great team around him. We're going to actually talk about that in a little bit. Let's see. Alexander Wilson. Oh, I think Trubisky is going to start next year with the rookie QB as a backup. Appreciate the $5 donation. I hope we do not get Trubisky. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, as long as we do draft a quarterback in the first couple rounds, I guess I would be okay with Trubisky. Where I'm like, no to Trubisky, no to Jimmy G. They're definitely in different categories, because Jimmy G is way better than Trubisky. But neither of those guys are franchise quarterbacks. So I mean, you can make an argument for Jimmy G, but I don't see it. I don't think he's a franchise quarterback. So I mean, if you don't draft a rookie, then I think it's just a wasted year next year. If you also have Trubisky or someone else, but it's an option. We've heard it for a while that they like Trubisky. He does, he's good enough to, if you have a good roster, to take you to the playoffs. He did that with Chicago, and they had a great defense. So it's not the end of the world. He's definitely more talented than a Heineke, and maybe sitting behind Josh Allen with Brian Duvall and those guys helped him out. Who knows? Fat American, appreciate the donation again, man. Also, I feel like it's a reach to grab any of these QBs in the first. Any guys you love for the 11th pick. So it's early. I've watched film for some of these guys. In terms of quarterback, only guy that I've watched, a substantial amount of film on is Kenny Pickett. I like Kenny Pickett. I think he's a guy I would take at 11. If he's there at 11, I would take him. He's got a good frame, 6'3", 220 pounds. I believe that's what he is. Has the most experience out of any quarterback that's going to go in the first, and had a great year this year. And some people might say, hey, he didn't have great years the years before. Well, the year before this year, he was hurt pretty much like all year. He was battling an ankle sprain, but he played through it. And you look at someone like Joe Burrow, pretty much the same thing. First few years was not really good, was projected to be like a 3rd, 4th round pick. Same thing with Kenny Pickett. Last year he balls out, and he's the number 1 overall pick. I like Kenny Pickett. Like, if you look at his rushing yards and like his stats, it's like 97 attempts for like 300 yards. But if you watch his film, he is way like, he is honestly probably more mobile than Justin Herbert. They just didn't really use him, give him that many design runs. Like the outside is more like QB sneaks, quarterback draws to like in the red zone. But I like Kenny Pickett. He's got a good arm. Sometimes on the deep throws, he underthrows a little bit. But I overall like Kenny Pickett. And some other guys that I like. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of drafting receivers usually in the first round, but I do like Garrett Wilson. I really, really do. That's a scenario where I would like maybe trade back if I'm at 11, get some picks for future years, and either Olave, Wilson, Drake London, any of those guys you could go to pair another receiver with Terry. Or there's other linebacker too, free safety if there's another free safety out there. There's a bunch of different guys, Kyle Hamilton, but he's not going to be there at 11. We would have to trade up for him, and I don't want to trade up for a free safety.
Yeah, I like Kyle Hamilton. But you look at those quarterbacks. I've looked at 3 closely. It's been Pickett, Howell, and Willis. And I honestly think out of those three, Pickett is by far the best. I think Willis is 2. Howell is number 3 on that list. I still got to look into Ritter a little bit more because I don't think the Alabama game is a fair assessment of him, right? It's not because it's Alabama. And then you got to look at the who's the other quarterback that I'm missing. I know it's like 5 of those guys that we need to look at Carson Strong. I've
Matt
heard
Corral, did you say him?
yeah, Matt Corral. Yeah, I keep on forgetting about Matt Corral because the one thing about Kenny Pickett that kind of bothered me, and it's probably nothing,
I know
but
what you're saying.
you know how I am, Pedro. See, you already know how I am. It's the fact that he didn't play that bowl game, and I see people say, "Yeah, Matt Corral played the bowl game," and see what happened to him. It's the fact that you were sitting there for 4 hours doing nothing, but was in the coach's box. Like, you're not working out, you're not doing anything. You could have went out and played that game.
Yeah, I mean, he
You
could
could
have,
have,
but
yeah,
I just think that
your
I mean,
future's
he's
now.
risking a ton of money. So I mean, I get your point, but
Yeah,
at the end of the day,
that's
I'm
what you got
fine.
insurance for. You got
Yeah,
insurance for.
but come on,
You take out the insurance policies.
nah.
It's just something that sticks in my crow, and
I
I'm
know,
like,
I know.
it just part of the petty persona that I have. Um,
Let me.
you know,
Yeah,
I and
I agree. I mean, not that I agree, but I get your point. Real quick, I'm going to get to Kevin's donation. Appreciate that. Ed Oliver. So he said, I'm trying to find it. He was talking about Ron drafted AGG2, Sadiq looking rough too. Well, I'll say with that though is you kind of have to look at it. Kyle Smith was the one who was in that. So everyone praising Kyle Smith. At the same time, Kyle Smith had a bunch of misses too. AGG was one of them. I would not
Deron
necessarily.
Christian.
Yeah, I would not say Sadiq Charles is necessarily a miss, really, because I mean it's a fourth round guy, fourth round offensive lineman. Not necessarily you know what I mean? You're not necessarily looking for a starter there. We were with him, but he, I think, will turn out to be a solid backup, could potentially be a starter as well at the guard position. I thought he finished, had a few good games at guard. So I'm not going to write off Sadiq. Obviously, AGG was a terrible pick. He's been on our practice squad. And, there's a couple other picks that we made, the last. But, Kyle Smith had his, misses. I mean, if you look week and later, either this stream or another stream, look at the years. But I mean, there's a ton of years where there's 2 players that you consider hits on one draft. But yeah, Kevin Mitchell, appreciate the $5 donation. We've talked a lot about trading for QB, but what about trading for a middle linebacker instead of finding a free agent? If we did, who would you target? So, I mean, that is a good question. I mean, it's hard because I mean, there's obviously a bunch of good middle linebackers. One that jumps out to jumps in my head is Bobby Wagner. I mean, I know that's a huge stretch. You'd have to give up a decent amount, but let's say Seattle does trade Wilson, and it might not be here. Let's say it's to, I don't know, Denver, right? That means that signals they're in rebuild mode. So they're likely, if that happens, they'll probably move on from Wagner, maybe Lockett as well. They'll try to rebuild a little bit, and that's scenario where maybe you can trade for Wagner. But I do think there are some solid guys in free agency that you could go after. I think it's much better than the quarterback free agency market. And let's say you do draft someone, or no, you sign someone in the first, or for a 1 year, 2 year deal, you can always draft a guy in the third, fourth round, and obviously he's still going to play, but let him sit for a bit. Play a few snaps a game, 5 snaps a game, and he'll be ready for the next year and potentially start. But yeah, there's any guys jump out to you as a trade guy that you could trade for as a middle linebacker? I'm trying to think of guys that are I don't know. It's hard to say, but Bobby Wagner would definitely be a realistic one if they move on from Russell Wilson, because if they do, I think he will likely be gone.
Yeah, and then I mean, Bobby Wagner, he'll add the leadership on that defense that you're probably looking for. Somebody else to maybe look out for as a middle linebacker, and it's a guy that Ron drafted. Was
Shaq Thompson?
Jermaine Carter
Okay.
played at Maryland. mean, that might be somebody to look at to throw in that spot. I'm not saying he's good. I'm not saying he's bad. But maybe that might be somebody you look at. I know he's had some numbers as like a special teams player and everything, but that might be somebody they look at. I don't know what his numbers were last year. Let me see. Yeah. Last year he had some decent numbers. So he had a 10 tackle game against the Vikings. He's improved. He had 86 total tackles last year. So, and he's had a couple of pass deflections. So maybe that might be a guy you look at. I don't know. And that could be the cheap route.
Yeah.
And it's a Carolina guy. I know y'all hate to hear it.
We need to sign a guy though, regardless. I don't like Bostic at all.
Nope.
But I'm okay with him as a backup. Because he does add that veteran leadership ability. And if you need him to play a little bit, it's not the end of the world. Like, I'd rather have him than David Mayo. At least that's my opinion. Appreciate that donation, Kevin. And I think regardless if it's a trade, if it's something else, middle linebacker is the biggest position need besides quarterback, in my opinion, this offseason. Some people are talking about Matt Corral, the linebacker for the Falcons. Again, can't pronounce his name, but yeah, he would be I think there's a lot of guys that you could sign in free agency that would be at least average linebackers. And that's a huge upgrade over what we had at the middle linebacker position, and allows Cole Holcomb to play on the outside where he truly, that's where he truly fits, in my opinion. So in terms of, we got sidetracked a little bit. We were going through our, quarterback plans. You gave yours. So this is mine, like foolproof. First, and it's a long shot, do everything it takes. Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Aaron Rodgers is the biggest pipe dream ever, but whatever. Aaron Rodgers, Derek Carr. I know he's not in the same category as those three, but do what it takes. Try to get one of those four. Everything you can. Try. I know people are going to be like, oh, don't give up, this, but for franchise quarterback, I think you give up whatever you can, especially for those first three guys. Derek Carr is a little bit of a different conversation because he is a franchise quarterback, in my opinion, but he's not a top 10 quarterback. So he's in a different stratosphere because those guys are all top 5 quarterbacks, top 7 quarterbacks when they're healthy, when they're playing. So that's my first scenario. Second scenario is try to go after someone like, I know you might not like this. I don't know. I'm not sure. Jameis Winston as a not just Jameis Winston, but you sign Jameis Winston and draft the rookie. So then you have both of those, because I just think you sign Trubisky, you sign Winston, trade for Jimmy G, all those guys, they could win you some games, but like, you're not going anywhere. But if you pair one of those guys with the rookie, you can have the best of two worlds. Win, but also develop a potential franchise quarterback. That's what I would do. Try to, the best of two worlds, veteran and a rookie. What do you think about that plan? And do you like, real quick, I like Winston over Jimmy G, not because I think Jimmy G's better. I think he is, but Winston obviously has more potential. Winston also, I know he did tear his ACL this past season, but he has less of an injury track record than Jimmy G. And also, he would cost in terms of money way less than Jimmy G. And also, you would just have to sign him. You do not have to trade for him. So he's a guy that I think no one is talking about at all. I hear everyone talking about free agent quarterbacks. They're like, oh, Mitch Trubisky, Andy Dalton, Geno Smith, like a bunch of these guys that I'm like, no. But no one's mentioned Jameis Winston, and I think he would be a solid option. What do you think about Winston versus Jimmy G?
I could get on board with that. The only thing outside of Jimmy G that Winston doesn't have is the playoff experience, right? And what is he going to be after that ACL injury?
He could have gone it this year if he stayed healthy.
Yeah. So it's just it's that mobility. What his mobility is going to be, and like when I say his mobility, I'm talking about his mobility in the pocket, because we know he's not a scrambler, but just Is he going to be able to dodge pressure? Is he going to be able to, just and drive that leg in to make make the ball go downfield? So those are some of the things that that I look at with Jameis Winston. Because he's coming off that injury, man. I really have to say I can't do it in good conscience.
I mean, I just ACL at this point, it's like, especially at the quarterback position, when it's not a mobile guy at all. Like Jameis Winston really never uses his he does not rely on his legs. Does not rely on his legs. So I really don't think it's an issue at all. I think it's an ACL injury. He did it November, beginning of November, maybe October. So I think he will be fine for the start of the season, maybe even might be ready for training camp. So I would be fine with it. But you obviously have to still draft the rookie, in my opinion. Fat American appreciate another donation says paying this year's first plus next year's first for Wilson. I would do that in a heartbeat. I mean, that's 2 firsts and let's call it a second/third round pick for Wilson. I think it's going to cost more though. I think it will cost more just because you got to think about it. We got pick number 11 this year. So that's okay. That's okay. Next year, if we have Wilson, we're not going to be at 11. We're going to be in the 20s somewhere. So it's just not enough value, in my opinion, for someone for the Seahawks to accept. I think it would take another first, I think probably, or maybe you do 2 firsts, Sweat, and something else like a couple mid-round picks. But this right here, in my opinion, does not get it done because you're giving a mid-first round pick, a late first round pick, and a second round pick at best in Payne for Wilson. And if they're trading Wilson, I think Kyle brought up a good point. Yes, we could trade some Daron Payne, but they're in rebuild mode. So they don't necessarily want to pay a defensive lineman $16, $17, $18 million a year. They're going to be more looking at draft capital. So that's something there. So maybe you would have to give up someone like Montez Sweat, who has another, 2 years? He had 2 years on his deal. If we do pick up the 5th-year option, because this was his 3rd year. So he'll have 2 more years. So that would be more of a scenario. You give 2 firsts. Montez Sweat, who I'm not sure what he's worth, but he's probably worth a first, I would say. This is an interesting one from Fat American. And you can just comment these. I'll read them. Maybe Chase Young 2 firsts plus next year's second. That is where it's I think they would do that for sure, right? I mean, you got
I don't think firsts. The other team would.
I don't know if Washington. What you're saying? You don't know if Washington would do it.
Yeah, I don't think we do it. I don't think, because you got to think he's coming now. The ACL injury is important.
Here's the thing, though. You look ACL, in my opinion. I honestly don't think. I think it's just obviously it takes a while to recover from. But look at Nick Bosa. Look at Nick Bosa comes off the ACL injury, freaking 16 sacks, and look absolutely insane. So in my opinion, these ACL injuries, I don't think at this point in technology, everything that's going on, it's really that much. It hurts their game that much. I just think it's really a bummer that it takes them out 6 to 8 months. But Chase Young, I mean, really, he's the number 2 overall pick. So you're really, let's say you're giving up a top 5 pick, 2 firsts, and next year's second. I don't know if I would do that, but I think they would do that because you would have Chase Young for 3 more years. You'd get, and that's 3 more years on a rookie deal, 2 firsts and a second. I think they would do that. Would I do it? I would do that for Watson if he is cleared. If Watson's cleared, I would do that for Watson because he is much younger and he's under contract for 5 years. But I don't know about Wilson.
Yeah, I don't. My thing is when you look at that, right, Pedro? And this is where I always get into it with some of our fans about we overvalue our own talent. Think about this from a grand scheme of things. You got Chase Young coming off an off year. He's injured. He was injured, right? What team in their right mind is going to trade a quarterback, an elite talent quarterback, no matter how old he is, for that? They're getting fleeced. I don't think John Snyder is in the business of getting fleeced. That is a grade A fleecing right here. That's not. I'd say no to it because I don't think it's practical. And I don't think they would accept. They're not going to accept. I think they're slapping their face, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we'll see. I do think Chase Young is valued a little bit more than people think. I mean, yes, he had an off year, of course, the first half of the year, but I mean, he was the number 2 overall pick, had a great rookie year. First half of the second year was disappointing, but I still think he's worth whatever. I mean, a couple first round picks, in my opinion, because I mean, you took him at number 2 overall, and that's kind of that's you know premium position, and he's a great talent. So I think he's worth a ton. But it just I don't think that the team would do it. I think Washington would be like, do I really want to give Chase Young away? I'm the face of the franchise, first pick by the Ron Rivera staff, and then also who knows if the Seahawks take it. What's up, Philip B? Appreciate you coming through. Let's see. If we can get Carr for next year's 1 and 3, we should 100% do it. I would do that. I would. Like, again, this is Jay Gruden, but I was listening to him on the podcast, and he was kind of saying like it would take like 3 firsts for Derek Carr, and I'm not touching that at all. I wouldn't even give up 2 firsts because Derek Carr is a good player, but you're gonna have to pay him like, hey, this is crazy, but you're gonna have to pay him close to 40 mil, like, which is insane, right? But you're gonna have to do it. You're gonna have to extend him, and I just don't know if that's worth it. And you look at the Raiders the last few years. I mean, what have they done? They went to the playoffs once, but I mean, and I think we do have a better team than the Raiders besides the quarterback position. So I think we could do a little bit better. But I would not give up that much for Derek Carr, because Derek Carr, I see Ted Skins 2000s comparing him to Kirk Cousins. I think it's a little bit different because they are kind of the same like range.
They are the same.
They're the same range of quarterback. But here's the thing: Kirk Cousins, what's the bet in prime time or in clutch situations? Derek Carr does not do that. Derek Carr has the most game-winning drives since coming into the NFL. So that's the biggest difference between them. Kirk Cousins might be statistically better, but I think Derek Carr is much, much more clutch than Kirk Cousins. But again, you're paying a guy who's not you're not a top 10 quarterback, and you're paying him top 5 money, and that usually happens at a lot of positions. But I don't know, man. I don't know if I would do that. Let's see. Fat American, look, man, I appreciate the donation. Ron is desperate. Anything is possible. I mean, I think he wants. That's the thing. He might make a panic move and try to trade for someone like Jimmy G. He is going to do all he can to get one of these franchise guys, and he might overpay a little bit. And you kind of have to overpay at the quarterback position. But I mean, we'll see. I think we will have probably a veteran quarterback as our starter next year. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it'll be a vet. I think I for some odd reason, I think we are going to get um a top an above average to top tier quarterback. I think we can. I think that's what Ron's aiming to do. And I think he understands the pressure. I mean, they respond to the they that press conference that him and Mayhew had. They mentioned the fans. As far as them hearing the noise, and they're upset that there wasn't more urgency, right? I think you're going to see that urgency this year. Now, who it's going to be, I don't know, but you can't come out here and lay the bid and wet the bed with Mitch Trubisky. You can't. That cannot happen, because that's pretty much Fitzpatrick in the grand scheme of things. You have to you're going to have to do it for 2 purposes: winning and marketing purposes. That is exactly that. That is 2 things you are going to have to do that for. You want a new quarterback in here because the new name and everything, and the way FedEx is falling apart. You want something to bring fans back in there. Fans ain't gonna come for Mitchell Trubisky. Russell Wilson, possibly. Derek Carr, maybe. If you got Deshaun Watson, yeah, they're gonna come to see these guys. They're not gonna come and see Mitch Trubisky and company. Like that. That's not how it's gonna work. I think the writing's on the wall, and they are going to make a push, kind of like what they did for Stafford. But the one thing why Stafford didn't come here is, and I'm glad he didn't come here, is because Detroit ate a lot of Jared Goff's contract. A lot of people don't forget that they ate a majority of that. They absorbed a lot of that big ass contract he had.
Yeah, and I think, let's see. James says, why do people think Carr's leaving Vegas? I think if they keep their interim head coach, he's not going to leave. But let's say, I mean, they're going to have a new GM and a new head coach. I mean, if they do have a new head coach, they're already going to have a new GM. That's where maybe they want to start off fresh. They want to, move away from everything from the past regime, everything that happened the last year, last few years in Las Vegas, and maybe they want to move on from that. I'm not saying it's going to happen, and they probably would be smart to keep Carr, but who knows? It's a whole new regime that's coming in. Tedskin says only rookie QBs I'd be interested in would be Kenny Pickett or Malik Willis. I like Pickett. Willis is a guy that definitely needs to sit, and that's the guy where I'm like, okay, if we get Jimmy G, that's where I'll be fine with if we get Jimmy G and have Malik Willis because he can sit behind him for at least a year. But another thing with Jimmy G is his contract is up after next year, so you're gonna have to also pay him. So that's where it's like, man, I really don't know if I want Jimmy G because Jimmy G will take. I think as long as nothing crazy happens, he will take this team to the playoffs. He'll take this team to the playoffs. But the question is, how much farther than the playoffs will it be? Probably at most one playoff win, and that's like really, really pushing it because I don't think he's that good to elevate, the players around him because if you look at the 49ers, I mean they have everything set up for Jimmy G. I mean they got Trent Williams, a great offensive line, even besides Trent Williams, they got George Kittle, top 3 tight end in the game. They got Deebo Samuel, top 10 offensive weapon in the game as a receiver / running back. And they have other, weapons. They've got a good run game with Elijah Mitchell, Wilson, even Mostert, who's not even playing. And they got a great defense. And that team won, 10 games this year? So I just don't know if he can. I mean, really, maybe he can win you 9, 10 games and maybe win a playoff game. But I'm not a huge fan of him. Let's see. Fat American, I appreciate another donation. Hope we can get tier 1 to elite QB, no tier. Yes, I agree with that. The only way, again, I'm okay with a tier 2 QB like Jimmy G is if we draft the rookie QB. Because if we don't, then it's just a wasted season. Next year's a wasted season if we do not take a swing at not even take a swing. If we do not acquire a guy that has potential to be a franchise guy, if we do not acquire a guy in the first 2 rounds of the draft or one of these elite guys in, the trade market, then it's a wasted year. It really is, unless we somehow win a playoff game, because even then you're not really making progress in terms of the quarterback of the future. But if you win a playoff game, which we haven't done since 2005, it's a little bit different. Let's see. Appreciate that. So let's real quick, we'll answer some other questions in the chat as well. Anyone that you guys have. We're also though gonna do some playoff picks for tomorrow. Or tomorrow and Sunday. Last week last week kind of a disappointing week for the playoffs. I mean, 2 good games with the Raiders Bengals game and then also the Cowboys game. That was great. The other games though, not so great. But this week looks like there will be some intriguing games. So we'll start off with the Bengals and the Titans. Who do you got in that game?
Tennessee.
Yeah, that's the one game I'm like torn on. It's like, because Joe Burrow is obviously the better quarterback. I think he's a lot better than Ryan Tannehill. It's not even close. I mean, Joe Burrow's debatably a top 5, top 7 quarterback right now in the NFL, but they're getting that bad man Derrick Henry back. They're getting some other guys back, so it's tough. I'm gonna go Bengals for now, just because of the quarterback. But I might change that pregame. And yes, Watson. That's the thing. If we do get Watson, we know we're gonna get hammered by the media for like pretty much the whole year, especially for like 1 or 2 weeks straight. Just like, man, how can an organization that's all this, all that, get a quarterback like that? But if he's cleared at the end of the day, like this
Yep.
team needs to win, like they do. So if he is cleared, I would trade for him. If he's not, of course, I mean, you can't trade for a guy that is accused of that and also who might not even play. So if Watson's cleared, I'll go for him. But if not, then we have to try to go for someone else. And also the thing with Watson is that like Combs reported it that he does not want to play here. He does not want to play here. So unless that changes, I mean, it's kind of out of the question.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's gonna be that is gonna be the key question right there. We'll only see with time, and you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot with that.
Yeah, I agree. So another donation from Fat American. Really, really appreciate it, man. Um, we've been pretty frugal since Vinny left. Say what you want. The man knew how to overpay to the point I think he'd be able to land Rodgers. I mean,
That's
Rodgers.
true.
I mean, you are right about that. I mean, but I don't know about I don't know about Rodgers, but yeah, we overpaid a ton of guys when Vinny was here, and then Bruce was the cheap one who just wanted to get a bunch of below average players and say he got a steal. That's what Kevin Sheehan always says. But I mean, yeah, I don't know. What do you think about Yeah,
No to Vinny. No, Vinny wouldn't have got him in there. And nobody wants that bum back.
and
He just
no one would be able to get Rodgers to DC no matter
no.
what happens because Rodgers wants to be on the West Coast. And also, like, man, I don't understand his beef with the organization. I mean, like, there's probably stuff behind the scenes that we don't know, but like, I mean, you look at him. He's got a great head coach who was on this staff that we've heard all this week, the whole week that Matt LaFleur was on this staff in 2013. Got a great head coach, best receiver in football, great running back tandem in AJ Dillon, Aaron Jones, amazing offensive line that no matter how many injuries they have, they just constantly play. They got Randall Cobb, they got Alan Lazard, and then on defense, Jair Alexander, Preston Smith, Zadarius Smith. I mean, Rashawn Gary. They've got it. Darnell Savage. They got a great team, great fans. He's been there his whole career. Like, not many situations that need quarterbacks that are going to be better than that. Like, Denver is a good situation, but not going to be better than Green Bay, in my opinion. So, yeah, I don't understand Rodgers leaving. I think he's
He'll be
gonna
right
come
back.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just said he really wanted. I actually know I know a gentleman who was on the Ice Bowl team, and I asked him in passing one day, and I said, hey, I said, what's up with Aaron Rodgers? I said, y'all gonna put him in his place or what? And he said Aaron's biggest thing is he wanted a bigger voice in the organization. And they said that they have started kind of giving him that voice. And I think that's why we've kind of heard the murmurs kind of drop down. I don't know if he said something with LaFleur. And to your point, Pedro, about LaFleur, how much of this is LaFleur and how much of this is actually Aaron Rodgers and the type of player he is and what he's doing to build an organization. And yeah, I saw that graphic too. I think that's the biggest crock of crap. Kyle Shanahan struggled with the Browns. They were
Well,
coming like
and no,
they were
also
yeah.
he Mike Shanahan was fired. That he was never going to be here. Kyle Shanahan was never going to be here. And then
Without his
Sean
name.
McVay, he even said that he was never going to take a job from Jay Gruden. Like he was never going to be here after Gruden got fired because he respected him a ton. His John Gruden hired him in the I forgot where UFL whatever, and then Jay hired him again. I think in Tampa. I can't remember, but yeah, really not a chance that we're going to be able to hire any of them. I mean, the only guy is Matt LaFleur, but why would I mean the guy after 2013, where we're 3-13, he went to Notre Dame, and then he went to like I don't know Falcons, a couple other teams, and then he landed in Tennessee as a coordinator, and then finally as the head coach. And yeah, I mean, it helps to have freaking Aaron Rodgers, but I mean, we'll see. We'll see if he's able to win a Super Bowl. Mike McCarthy only won one with him. But I mean, they've gone pretty close. They just got to actually get over the hump of the NFC Championship. So the next game is the Packers game is tomorrow. So I got the Packers in that game. I got the Packers in that game.
Yeah, I think the Packers put one on San Francisco. Aaron Rodgers, I don't think he's ever beaten San Francisco in the playoffs. I think he's 0-3 against them. I think he finally gets over the hump, and they finally vanquish the 49ers. Yeah, if I'm thinking about that right, 2012, 2013, they played each other.
And then
San Francisco, yeah, in 2000, and then the NFC Championship game a couple years ago. So, yeah, I think Aaron Rodgers finally gets over the hump against San Francisco because he knows what's on the line. And I think they want to make amends to what happened last year in the NFC Championship game against Tampa Bay.
I agree. So, next game is the I think is it the Rams and the Bucks? Whatever.
Yes,
that game's on
it
Sunday.
is. That's right.
I've got the Bucks. You cannot bet against Tom Brady and Stafford. I love Stafford. I do. I think he's a good quarterback, but he has been struggling the last few games. I mean, last game against the Cardinals, he was good, but he didn't really have to do much. He threw 17 passes. So I am gonna pick the Bucks. Can't bet against Tom Brady. No matter how many injuries they have, Tom Brady, don't bet against him.
Yeah, Whitworth is out for this game. I know he's out for most of the game last week, but they went a whole week with it.
I know you and Nati always go back and forth about Stafford.
I mean, it's no point in going back about Stafford. I mean, Stafford is what he is, and Sean McVay did not trust Matt Stafford. He goes 13 of 17 for 202 and 2 touchdowns because he has the elite talent around him. And that's my whole argument with him and Jared Goff, because Jared Goff was doing the same stuff because of his coaching and the elite talent and what they have put. Like the Rams have put everything and put their chips in the middle, and this could blow up on them or could be very successful in 2 weeks, and we'll see. But I'm with you, Pedro. You cannot go against Tom Brady. I know that they will be in space. Leonard Fournette is back this week too, so I think you're going to see a heavy dose of Fournette, a close game. But at the end of the day, I just think the experience of Tom Brady outbeats Matt Stafford's experience in the playoffs, and they win.
Yep, and what's up, Awesomeness Sports? Appreciate you coming through. Powell Williams says, why not land Rodgers and Devontae Adams? Why isn't Brandon Sheriff signed yet and Leno signed before him? Well, hey, I wish we could land Rodgers and Devontae Adams,
but
we're never going to be able to do it. I mean, the pipe dream would be you land Derek Carr, Rodgers leaves Green Bay, which means Devontae Adams is gonna leave Green Bay, and then you get Devontae Adams, who wants to play with his guy, who he played with at Fresno State, in Derek Carr. They've been talking about playing with each other for a while. That's the pipe dream right there. But there's no scenario where we're able to land Rodgers and Adams, in my opinion. I mean, I think Rodgers is staying in Green Bay, but if he does move, he's going to want to go to a different situation, in my opinion. But it would be nice. And then Sheriff just wants too much money. He wants too much money. He wants to be getting paid like $19 million a year, $18 million a year, $20 million a year, and I'm not paying that for. A guard who he's good, but he misses a lot of games. And I know that's another argument that we have.
Oh, God.
All the time. But I'm not paying. I would pay Sheriff like $15 million a year because fine. I think he is a good guard, maybe even 16. But nothing more than that because he's just not worth it.
And this is my big thing with Sheriff, and I've said it all the time, is he doesn't stay. His durability is becoming a liability now. I know we see that number, which I think is a hollow stat, that Washington was like, we were like 7-4 with him in the game, but if he's not in there, we were like 0-4 or 0-6. So I mean, at the end of the day, that comes down to building depth. That is a depth problem. Joe Thuney, who is, I think, is a better guard than Brandon Sheriff, went out there to Kansas City. He's doing pretty good, right? But he was in New England with Belichick. Belichick didn't make any bones about this. He said, go ahead, move on. They were in the playoffs this year.
Yeah.
They had a rookie. To me, it make more sense to keep somebody like Joe Thuney. But yeah, I mean, Brandon Sheriff, I have respect and reverence what he's done for this team. And you can't take that away from him. Yeah. But at the end of the day, you've got to move on. You've got to move on from Brandon Sheriff and just cut your losses, have your lumps. Because you look at Trent Williams. I would love to have Trent Williams back. But at the end of the day, Pedro, the offensive line has not been that bad. Charles Leno wasn't that bad. Lucas in that spot wasn't that bad either last year. So, yeah, I mean, they weren't elite, but it's all about continuity. Yeah.
And someone in the chat put, like, we did offer him to be the highest paid guard. We've been offering him some good money, but, you know, I guess it didn't really make sense for him because of the franchise tag. But still, nonetheless, I don't think he's going to be here, but, you know, we'll get a third-round compensatory pick, which is nice. You know, he's going to be – hopefully – you know, honestly, I hope he gets paid a ton. I hope he gets paid like $22 million a year because we'll get a third-round compensatory pick as long as we don't sign, like, a bunch of players. Because I think that's how it works, right? It's like as long as you don't sign a bunch of players, you'll get the compensatory pick, something like that. But we'll get one for Brandon Sheriff, hopefully, and we'll see about some other guys that leave. We might get like a fifth-round compensatory pick for Tim Settle because I think Tim Settle will actually get a decent deal. Like for the production he's had, people that are not really following Washington, they'll be like, how is Tim Settle making $8 million a year or whatever it is, maybe even more than that? You know, he hasn't even gotten that many sacks, but then you look at it, and he had 5 sacks last year, not this past year, but the year before that, as a third-string guy. So, you know, behind Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen. So we might get some compensatory picks there. So real quick, next game, and then we're probably going to head out. Chiefs, Bills. I got the Chiefs here. I like Allen, but I like Mahomes better, and I got the Chiefs winning this game.
I'm fading you here, buddy. My preseason Super Bowl pick was the Packers and the Bills, with the Bills winning it. I like the Bills. Singletary starting to run the ball for them. If they can turn into a ball control game, I think they win out, but I think it will be fireworks at Arrowhead. But Buffalo, I think Buffalo gets them this time around because it's just I think it's their time. I really do think it's Buffalo's time.
Yeah, my preseason pick was Chiefs versus Packers, with the Packers winning it. So I gotta go Chiefs on this one. I gotta go Chiefs on this one. Yeah, Philip B. Deshaun Watson has a no trade clause. So, and he apparently, John Keim said that he to this point does not want to come here. So, Keim even said Ron Rivera is gonna have to do a lot of talking with Deshaun Watson's agent to try to convince him to waive his no trade clause. And so Russell Wilson also has a no trade clause. I just hope those guys do not go to New York, the New York Giants, because they do have the thing with the Giants. They got the number 5 pick and the number 7 pick, I believe. So they've got maybe even 4. I don't know. They got really, really good draft capital from that Bears trade. And, you know, I'm fine. We did not trade for Justin Fields. You know, the Bears did that. Justin Fields, in my opinion, he could be good. But what did he get? 7 touchdowns, 10 interceptions this year. I know stats aren't everything, but I'm not a huge Fields fan from what I saw his rookie year. Obviously not in a great situation, but I'm fine that we didn't trade a first. We would have had to trade pick 19, another first, and something else to get Fields. I'm fine with not doing that because if you don't love a quarterback, no reason to get desperate for one. They might do that this year, though, and go for Jimmy G or someone else. But that's it. You know, that's just my opinion. So Corey, appreciate you coming on. If you guys are
Appreciate
in
you,
the
man.
chat, make sure you guys go sub up Corey. Go ahead and sub him up. I put the link in the description, also in the chat as well. Also, go ahead. I'm going to put the link in the chat, and it is also in the description. Follow my Twitter out there, trying to get to 1,000 followers on there. And Corey, appreciate you coming on. I assume you're going to be streaming the games this weekend.
All weekend we'll be here. Me, I'll be there, and Toothpick, he'll be in on some of those games, but we'll be here tomorrow and all throughout the playoffs. So get ready, y'all. Get ready. It's gonna be fun. We're gonna have a good
Should be fun. I mean,
fun.
this is the best playoffs in my opinion, NFL football, and I mean all of these games should be. These all have good, potential to be good games. I mean,
Oh,
that Bucks Rams game, we'll see. That could, if Stafford wets the bed, that could be a really really bad game. But besides that, I think all these other games should be pretty good. And I really really hope that Chiefs game is a shootout. I really do. Appreciate. Oh wait, let's see. Philip B. Last second donation. Appreciate it, man. Says appreciate you, Corey and Pedro. I'll have to visit the stream for sure. Yeah, make sure you come through to Corey's stream. I think you're streaming all the games. Should be fun. Appreciate you supporting the channel. Appreciate everyone here in the chat. If you guys haven't already, subscribe to Corey on the road to 3,000 subscribers. Help him get there. And yeah, pull up to a stream this weekend. Thanks, Corey, and thanks everyone in the chat. Have a good weekend, guys.